Protect your DNA. BioPQQ can promote formation of new mitochondria. Infowarsstore.com.
Today we have another example of the absurdity of technology. Walmart developing a self-driving shopping cart. How much more ridiculous does it have to get? And as I've pointed out many times, I think that much of this technology is designed to turn us into children, to essentially put us in a shopping cart, the kind of shopping cart where you've got a little, you put your child in there and they got a little tiny wheel that's not connected to anything and it keeps them busy, it keeps them happy. That's what a lot of this technology is there for. Keeps you busy and happy while they do something else. But take a look at what Walmart is doing. They say the retailer's filed a patent for a shopping cart that has a motor and video cameras. The best part, it would be able to return itself from customers' cars to the store. Oh yeah, isn't that great? Let me tell you something. If they actually go through with this, the only reason they're going to do this, the only reason they would spend the money, can you imagine how phenomenally expensive this would be? And of course, if you're like me, you've had your car hit in Walmart parking lots and other parking lots more times than you care to think about. We don't need to start putting motors on these things as well. But the only reason that they would do this is because Walmart would like to put an app on your computer so that they could follow you, okay? That's what's going to be involved with this, so that they can mine your data, so they can look at what you're doing, so they can sell to you better. But today, I want to talk, because there's other self-driving car news here, as we see where this is all heading. Understand that where this is heading is just like putting you in the shopping cart and giving you a little wheel to turn. It's far more sinister than that. They've had a plan for a very long time, and we can see this now in the plans of Ford Motor Company, for example. Two announcements, one on Monday, another one today. And we can see where the globalists are heading with this. They want to turn you into renters. This is a very serious story about globalism. Understand that the automobile industry has been the engine of prosperity, not only for America and Detroit, but also for countries like Japan or South Korea. And when we lose this, when we ship our jobs overseas, when we take away our, and it's not just economic freedom, okay? It's also been the freedom to move, to travel, to move about within society anonymously without somebody controlling or limiting your movements or having it done on a schedule. All this is about to change with a collusion between the crony capitalists and the government. Let's take a look, though, first at this story about Vicente Fox begging Americans today to stop Trump. And at the essence of this is coming, interestingly enough, on the same day that the Ford CEO is talking about moving all U.S. small car production to Mexico. Vicente Fox said, "Wake up, America." He's former president of Mexico. "Wake up, America," he said to the Washington Post. "I want to warn people here in the U.S. to watch out for this false prophet, Donald Trump, that has promised gold, that has promised paradise, that has promised everything." Hey, you know what? The false prophets are the ones who sold you NAFTA. The false prophets are the ones who are trying to sell you the Trans-Pacific Transatlantic Partnership, who wrote that in secret. They are the liars. They're the ones who are deceiving you, people like Vicente Fox, because look at what he's known for. As we point out in this article at Infowars.com, Fox wanted the U.S. to join Mexico and Canada into an EU-style North American Union, not just the free trade agreement, but the North American Union, like the EU, which would combine all three countries into one regional government using one currency, like the euro, at the expense of both U.S. national sovereignty and our individual rights. He said in a book that he wrote, his autobiography, Revolution of Hope, he said, "I proposed a NAFTA plus plan to President Bush and Canada's Prime Minister Jean Chrétien to move us toward a single continental economic union, modeled on the European example." Oh, boy, I'm sure. Sorry we didn't jump into that that cauldron at the time. He says, "At summits, I took every opportunity to advocate clearly for free market policies, showing what sound economics could do to fund social justice. I argued for globalism, for NAFTA, for the free trade area of the Americas." Now, how was that working out? We talked about the fact that before NAFTA, we had a rough trade parity between the U.S. and Mexico. Some years we had a surplus, some years we had a deficit with them. As soon as they passed NAFTA, we had a trade deficit of $15 billion, and it never got smaller. It has only increased. This last year, it was $60 billion. Every year for the last, and I forget how many, it's about 25 years since we've had NAFTA, we've had a trade deficit like that, $15 billion or more with Mexico. Now we see today The CEO of Ford Motor Company, Mark Fields, told investors today in Dearborn, Michigan, over the next 2 years, we will have migrated all of our small car production to Mexico. Shifting their assemblies to Mexico can reduce cost to a point, but as the Detroit Free Press points out, these cars are over-engineered. Well, that's by federal mandate. They say the future of smaller cars in the U.S. may depend on the ability to electrify their powertrains to introduce them to ride-sharing fleets. And that's where they are focusing, folks. Because on Monday, the Ford CEO, Mark Fields, came out and said, we're going to have driverless cars. We're going to have them by 2021. Remember, we've been told for a long time the globalists' grand plans are going to be coming to fruition around 2020 or 2025. Whenever you look at all of their plans, it's always one of those two dates. Interestingly enough, they're now saying we're going to take over transportation by 2021. And let me say this, too. I have a lot of people who always, whenever I criticize self-driving cars, especially when I criticize the crony capitalist Elon Musk, they get very angry about that. And I have to tell them, you have to look beyond the bells and whistles of the technology, beyond the pretty little displays that they create. Look at the larger system. Look at the technology from a system level. You will understand that humans and robot cars cannot coexist at the same time. In order to make their robot cars work, they're going to have to put limitations on human drivers. They're going to have to eliminate human drivers from the road. But part of that, as they phase this in, is going to be to make the roads actually literal information highways where they monitor everything that you do, where they tax you for every mile that you're driven, where they monitor all of your speed and so forth and will charge you accordingly for that to the point where you will no longer be able to afford to drive your car. That's the other freedom. Besides the economic prosperity that we lose and the economic freedom that we lose, we also will lose our freedom to travel. But what he said that I thought was interesting was he would have the self-driving cars by 2021, and 5 years perhaps later, they would begin to sell them to individuals. They're going to keep these cars and they're going to rent them as part of a ride-sharing fleet. Because you have to understand that what the crony capitalist billionaires want to do is to own everything. They want to own everything. They want to turn you into a renter. Now, we have seen this on the national, international level with the International Monetary Fund. When we had Robert McNamara take that over, sell third world countries on welfare states, get them hopelessly in debt where they couldn't get out, and people criticized them for that. They said the IMF is rent-seeking. Let me tell you what the crony capitalists, like the people who run Ford, like the Uber executives, okay, like Elon Musk, they want to own everything. They want you to be a renter. They don't want you to own your home. They want you to rent from them. It's more profitable, far more profitable. They want you to be servants to them. They want you to be sharecroppers, not own the farm. They want you to be a sharecropper. Take a look at Uber. Now, of course, today they hit the streets at Pittsburgh, and now they are showing their self-driving cars. They say they have 4 self-driving cars made available to passengers today in Pittsburgh. And as the press points it out, dutifully, cheerleading press of the self-driving cars, they say it was all done without a person touching the controls. And then under this large picture, they say, but the Uber driver and the engineer in the front 2 seats did intervene every few miles. In other words, the technology is not here. Okay, but I'm not concerned about whether or not they can make the technology work. I'm not even concerned about the safety that we continue to see. And today we had yet another report about a Tesla crash. This one was in China. This one was covered up for 8 months. Remember the first fatal crash that we had with a Tesla self-driving car? That was covered up for 2 months. Because they covered that up for 2 months with the help of the Federal Oversight Agency for 2 months, the transportation agency that should have made that public. They were able to make a lot of money in the stock market. So the SEC is investigating Tesla. There are shareholders who are suing Tesla who bought the stock while this information was kept secret. And yet, and at the time, they were saying, even after they released it after 2 months, they said, oh, but it wasn't an autopilot. Then we found out that it was. Okay, then they said, well, it was a brakes or whatever. Now we're seeing the same thing in China. 8 months they kept this secret, and now they're pulling this out. They have to go to self-driving cars, and they want to turn you into renters. That's precisely what Uber is doing. Uber says our business model will fail if we don't get rid of the humans. Well, that's it for tonight's Infowars Nightly News. Join us again tomorrow night at 7 Central, 8 p.m. Eastern for the Infowars Nightly News.
Ladies and gentlemen, I've been on this the last few months. You probably noticed I've been more crazed, more focused, less brain fog, more energy, more special reports, and it's because of Brain Force.
We kept changing this formula over and over and over again until it became sort of a grand puzzle. This just increases the compounds you already have.
This is what you're actually designed to run on.
You will find Brain Force, Survival Shield X2, and other game-changing products at InfoWarsLife.com or call 888-253-3139.